shabby.
Looking back, it's weird. I had a bloke with like nut huggers and like knee sleeves on my bedspread.
You wish that you'd been pushed more. I feel like I'm learning so much about the way you are. You crying?
But I have actually got quite a lot of emotion about this. I don't know why.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry. Howdy, partner.
Turn to the side.
Why?
You look like a little ballerina.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you've got poos made all over your face.
No, you got a tight little bun going on.
Yeah,
like the ballerinas
I regularly wear a bun.
Not like that.
Yeah.
That's the tightest donut I've seen in a long time.
A little donut, is it? Yeah, it's looking quite fancy, isn't it? How are you?
All good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too shabby.
So you got Leah's fingerprint on your jewels there?
I do. Isn't that sweet? Like, I've started wearing this. Leo's noticed that this is a fingerprint, and he started putting his finger on it, which is
his
very cute.
Pinky or?
You know what's awful is I actually can't remember. It's either his index. Is that your second finger? Yeah.
No, you donut.
That's index.
Yeah. Why is that your second finger?
Well, that's just what it's called, isn't it?
What's your first finger then?
Well, it's just your thumb, then your index.
No.
So it's just the second finger.
That's
Middle
not a
finger,
finger,
which
is
is
it?
third. Yes.
Thumb's not a finger.
Well, it is. How many fingers do you have?
Wait, hang on. That's not...
You know,
That's legit. Is that a finger?
the thumb is a finger. You've actually got really nice hands.
Thanks. I'll take that from my dad.
So some people have. I've got a couple of friends who really have like thumbs that look like toes. Apparently, it's a sign of creativity, though.
Thumbs that look like toes.
Yeah,
Imagine
like a really like stubby.
Oh god.
Actually, there's a good one. Would you rather have a toe on your thumb or a thumb on your toe as your big toe?
Mate, I'd rather have a thumb on my toe, I think. Imagine that.
Skinny toe.
Oh my god.
Your dad actually pointed out something over the weekend. He said, oh no, it was actually Gareth, your eldest brother. He said that Leo had, is it a Roman toe? When your second toe is longer than your big toe.
Oh, I don't have that. I've always found that quite odd. But it's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got it on one of my feet, so it's probably why he's got it on
Mate,
one of his feet.
your feet are weird. Didn't you used to like stack your toes like that when you were just lying down?
Can't you cross your toes over?
That is so bizarre.
Do you not know how to do that, though?
I remember you lying in bed. You used to cross your toes over and stack them up. I'd be like, what are you doing? That is terrifying.
Do you know who I get that from?
Who?
My dad used to always, he's so like fidgety with his hands, and also, so he's always going like this, like making like noises with his fingers, like rubbing his like fingers and then toes.
Does he stack his
Like
toes?
this.
Oh.
Actually, no, I don't know. I can't visualize.
I'm not that...
I know with his like hands.
You pick stuff up with your feet. You're like my mum. Like a little chimp.
Yeah, well, Leo does that. Leo does it as well. You've seen me do it.
Ah, funny.
It is nuts how children just are you and then continue to kind of become you.
Go on.
Have you noticed anything funny that he does, or something like either a physical or sort of behavioural trait of his? Do you think, that's me?
It's a good question. What does he do? No, I haven't actually seen much. Like mannerisms. Like, you talking about that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Last week we spoke about the fact that Leo followed you when you were both running back from nursery to the house, and you dodged a bus stop, and he then also moved onto the road, and you panicked, and he turned to you, and what did he say?
I want to do what you do. Daddy.
Does that make you feel like you need to check yourself?
Yes. Yes, it was a helpful reminder.
It kind of made me think a bit about my own childhood and about a few different things. Firstly, like which traits did I scoop up from my parents, good and bad? But then also I wanted to talk today more widely about the idea of like icons or idols that you have when you're younger, and then like moving up through your adolescence and then into adulthood. And then when like, I suppose, idols sort of turn into maybe role models and more mentors in life. Mm-hmm. So why don't we start with the things that you think that you've inherited from your parents, because it's quite interesting to look at that. Like, are there things that they used to do around you that you think, oh, that is why I am this way? Like, a really basic example, I think the reason that I'm such a good cook is because...
I know, here comes the 5 roasts a week comment.
Because my dad used to cook me, like, steak and hand-cut chips when I was 2, and, like, I used to devour it. And so I would see, that was, like, the sort of prime time for us in our house, was the time spent in the kitchen, cooking and eating together. And he would always... So yes, we would have several roasts. We would always have a big roast beef on the weekend.
But it wasn't
and he would
just
cut off bits as it was like halfway to being done. He would slice off bits at the end, and he would always go, Louise, have a taste of this. It's delicious. And then he'd like cook it a bit more, you know, at like a few different intervals. And he'd just stuff it in my mouth, and he still does it. And he goes, gotta taste this. Gotta taste this.
He doesn't even give you a chance to open your mouth.
He's such a feeder. I remember it's a bit like that bloody Come Dine With Me episode when there was someone who served up a bird within a bird within a bird within a bird, which is the weirdest concept ever. You've got like a tiny like partridge and a pheasant, or like a poussin and a partridge and a pheasant in a chicken and a turkey.
Inside?
Yeah, I don't think we really do it.
Bloody hell.
But I remember friends coming around who were the kinds of people that like ate like birds. They were like little eaters because we were young, and they'd come to my house and they'd literally get like slammed with a plate of food. They get like a whole chicken on their plate with 10 different vegetables and like lashings of gravy and everything.
But
I used to be really embarrassed, but people used to go, oh, I can't wait to come. Like, oh, does your dad still do all that amazing food? Does he still get the roast?
I can verify this. When he arrives with those bags of food, heaven.
But he used to be like star chef. It's a sign that he's getting older, that when now he wants to kick back and be looked after. The one thing I will say is that now he's very judgmental about other people's cooking. Do you remember when I cooked that chicken pie and he still claims that I tried to kill him?
Yeah. Sent him straight to the bogs, didn't you?
Sent him into the hospital.
That's true.
Yeah, seizure.
He approves of my barbecuing though, or is it just the barbecue?
No, you are like elite at cooking on that grill.
Can I ask you a question about your roasts?
Yeah.
Did you just have like one joint of meat with potatoes and veg, or would you have like several birds? Because in my mind, I was thinking that you have like pheasant, partridge, chicken, and like 18 different greens, like steamed. Does he like steamed?
He's obsessed. We used to have this machine which you would plug onto the side of a table, and it was like, and you'd wheel it, and runner beans would come out of it. Like it would shred like all these greens, peas and beans and all this stuff. Yeah. It's this big like metal.
I love this
iron kind of like
wheel.
I grew
up in that house.
Yeah, there was a lot, and we even used to have like kippers being cooked up. We actually had a kitchen in our basement as well.
My dad offered me kippers on Sunday. I was like, did he? I'm not having kippers.
We used to have like smoked kipper fumes like running through the house.
Yeah, in your second kitchen in the basement though, yeah? Yeah.
Well, even actually it was hilarious because we were talking about, who were we speaking to about my dad the other day, like one of the girls, and you were talking about the poussins.
Holly.
So I was like, what's a poussin?
Yeah, Holly didn't know what a poussin was.
The most absurd word, to be fair. So yeah, I think like cooking is definitely something that I've kind of scooped up a bit of that creativity from my fam.
That's a good one.
Someone said to me the other day, what's the word that you think you use the most? And my response was Ryan. And I think I hate it when people won't listen to me, or like can't listen or can't hear me, or if I'm in a conversation and someone's not locked in and they like walk away. And my dad, and I notice I do it to Leah, I go, come back. I'll say, come here.
Don't run away.
Don't run away. No, I say, don't run away. And my dad's, the sentence that he uses the most ever is, don't run away. And if he's around me and my brother, he'll probably say don't run away about 20 times, because my brother's the worst. He does not listen to anybody. So he'll walk out of the room and my dad, poor dad's like, don't run away, mid-sentence. So yes, little things like that.
These are good examples.
What about you?
Well, I've probably picked up on the ritual kind of things as well from my dad. My dad was always really religious with the sort of Saturday morning. I've probably told you this before. Saturday morning would always feature like the newspapers, the cafetiere, French press of coffee, and some kind of like rugby on the TV. And more often than not, it'd be like Super Rugby from New Zealand or Australia. And my Saturday mornings were always like that. And I sometimes try and replicate those mornings here in the house. And I know that Adam definitely does it, and my middle brother, he definitely tries to replicate, because something about those mornings on Saturdays were just like, oh, the warm fuzzies. So that's something that I've picked up from him.
Do you know something that's really odd?
What?
The drone of a referee, not a referee, what is it? Like just, like the background noise of like chanting in a stadium, and also, the commentator. What's the name for that person? Commentary. The running commentary was so familiar in our house as well. As you mentioned it in my book, that apparently my dad used to pretend that he was going to the office on the weekend and would go and just sit and like watch sport away from the house so he wouldn't get dragged into other activities.
Your dad and your brother watch sport very loud. Loud,
and a lot of it.
Whoa.
But when I was really sick, when Leo was probably about 2 or 3 months old, I remember really specifically, I was dissociated for kind of 3 days straight. I couldn't click back into like reality. Like I don't know if anyone's like ever experienced like severe dissociation before, but I felt like really detached from myself. And the one time that I did was when I lay down on that sofa and there was that noise in the background, the mundane noise of sport, football playing in the background. And it made me feel calm, and I snapped out of my dissociation.
Yeah.
How weird is that? Because it was such like a comforting, like, noise.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just like a sort of like background murmur.
I thought you were going to say that you hate it because you quite often tell me to turn it down when I've got sports on the TV.
Yeah, I do like, and this is, I guess, interesting, isn't it? Because it's the differences of like parenting opinions. For me, I worry that like if Leo sees a lot of, look, he's only 3. If he sees a lot of like, okay, I don't like it. You once had boxing on in the morning first thing. And I think I don't want my son watching someone get punched in the face because I don't even want to see that. It makes me wince. But then if you see people like rugby players that are like tackling and scrumming and, and like
scrumming.
Football. But you know, he went to like one football match and then he started like slide tackling himself on the floor, like pretending to fall over. Because let's be honest, like most football players are just pretending to fall over or like get hurt the whole time.
Facts.
So I know how like malleable their little brains are, and I just want to nurture what he watches on telly. I want to control it. I want him to watch nice, soft things. I remember how petrified I was of the child catcher.
My mum says the same
Chitty
thing.
Chitty Bang Bang?
Yes. My mum was also
petrifying. There was also, do you remember that show where there was like, oh my God, it was Basil the Rat Detective. I've got so anxious I'm starting to play with my earrings.
Is that your new thing?
There was a pram. They were in like some big monastery or something. And there was a noise and someone went over and there was a pram and inside it there was an evil bat with a wooden peg leg hiding in there. Does anyone else remember that? No. It was the most traumatizing thing from my childhood.
The Rat Detective.
I think it was called Basil the Rat Detective, Pet Detective, Rat Detective. He was a rat, something like that, and there was this bat, and I will never get that out of my head.
Seem familiar.
So things like that, like kids cling on to odd little things. Like, do you remember that fat dog that we used to move around, that evil dog on a skateboard in one of the some Disney movie?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Like evil characters really leave a lasting impression on kids.
I'm just trying to think of more examples of things that I've picked up from my parents. But
do you actively then think, oh, I want to recreate that scene of like the beautiful breakfast environment on the weekend, or is it subconscious?
Subconscious.
Yeah, so you're not like trying too hard.
No, subconscious. Yeah, and I'm not, as I say, I'm not religious like he was with it. But when it happens on a Saturday, I'm like, oh, this feels really comforting and familiar.
But you know what's funny about that is like, and this is probably also like descending from our parents. I've decided, actually probably about 6 months ago, that I was going to get all of the
Financial Times and
I decided about 6 months ago I was going to get loads of papers delivered to the house on the weekend.
There is something quite nice about having. I mean, I'm not going to claim that I read the papers religiously. I don't, but there's something quite nice about having the papers in the house.
We never, ever touch them. Like, we haven't opened a newspaper in the house for months, but having them in the house feels...
It must be linked
safe. It feels nostalgic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so then moving into when you get a little bit older, who was your first like icon? Who did you have on your wall at home? Did you have posters? Like, were there people? I remember.
I'll tell you who my first bedspread was. In fact, if you can guess it.
Okay, I bet I can.
I bet you can.
Okay,
as well.
okay. If I get it right, what do I get?
An ice cream.
Oh, sweet. Rocky.
No, but take off the Y.
The Rock.
The Rock. He was my first bedspread. I went to boarding school with The Rock on my single bed duvet cover, and I was like, surely this is going to make me popular.
Hang on, what's his real name? Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson.
That
yeah.
is so funny.
Looking back, it's weird. I had a bloke with like nut huggers and like knee sleeves on my bedspread, and I was like, "Yep, this is me."
What colour was
Shirtless.
it?
It was like electric blue, and he was standing on the ring ropes like this with his arm, with his little nut huggers and bare chested. I was like, "This is weird."
Was that okay? So this is before The Rock obviously kind of like rose to fame
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like movies,
Yeah,
and
back
is
in
he in
West-
Moana? No,
Yeah, yeah.
all of that stuff.
Way before that.
This is when he was in WWF, because my
Yes.
brother was obsessed with WWF.
Yeah.
They were twins, they were brothers, weren't they?
Matt and Jeff Hardy. I called my goldfish those names.
Did you?
Yes, I had goldfish called Matt and Jeff Hardy. I was a wrestling
Wait, there
fan.
was okay, name me some more of them. The
Undertaker,
The
Triple
Undertaker,
H,
the really
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
the Undertaker was the quite like scary one with long hair.
Yeah, and his brother Kane.
Cain and Abel. No, wait, that's a fable.
Remember
This brings back
Rafiki?
so many memories. No,
Rafiki butt slap.
sorry, Rafiki's from The Lion King, no?
There's a wrestler who was like a really overweight black guy, and he used to wear basically like a skirt. And his move, instead of like a choke slam or something, his would be the butt slap, was basically he'd put his butt in your face, and his bum was huge. And he'd just rub his fat ass in your face. That was his move.
Isn't it weird that they all have moves? I remember that.
Yeah, mate,
it
the
was a bit
Swanton Bomb.
It was a bit like trump cards where
The
you have like
Swanton
your
Bomb.
move.
I used to love Matt and Jeff Hardy, mate. And one of them had, I think Matt or Jeff was dating a girl called Lita, and oh my god, Lita was fit.
So wait, hang on. Did you have? This is so interesting. So you probably had more men in posters on your wall than women when you're younger.
Hell yeah.
Because I think that men kind of idolize. Actually, yeah, I guess men idolize men and women idolize women, don't they? That's how it works.
I had pictures like Rocky, like you say, and Rambo, same actor, and The Rock and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they're all basically shirtless. It's no wonder I ended up a gym head for a while. I was like, I just need to look like that guy.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And did your friends also have the same interests? Like, did everybody like those big macho men, or did some people have like girls with like their tummies out on their walls?
Well, I'm talking like early stage, like early childhood here. By the time I got to school, I can't even remember. They probably did have females on their wall.
Wait, didn't you have Nicole Scherzinger on your wall?
Oh yeah,
At one point.
I probably didn't have her on my wall, but she was for a number of years my number one. Yeah,
That's so funny.
but this was heavily influenced by my two brothers as well.
I guess because you had brothers that were 6 and 7 years older,
Yeah.
so you would have kind of followed their
Yeah.
path.
I've got memories of my brothers blasting Rocky, and I'm like age 10, and they're like, not in an aggressive way, but they're shouting at me, like getting me to do press-ups and pull-ups at age 10 with Rocky blasting, and they're like, God! Trying to like build a beast.
Well, like you're like a little pet.
Yeah. Fucking worked.
Stop swearing.
Oh, sorry, mum. Yeah.
Wow. I guess because, so who did we idolize when we were younger? There was the whole sort of like girl band era.
What, Spice
So
Girls?
I loved the Spice Girls. And I remember for one of my friend's birthdays, she'd never been allowed to eat at McDonald's. And for her birthday party, we went to McDonald's and then we went to Wembley and watched the Spice Girls in concert.
It's a great day.
It was a great day. And there's actually another part to that in that we all got a limo, but I was wondering whether to throw that in because it's really naff and also
You also probably
pretty
took
obnoxious.
over McDonald's exclusively, didn't you?
No. Yeah, so I guess my icons were probably the
Hey,
Spice
Muscles.
Girls.
Yeah. Spice Girls.
And then, but like
Which
telly, yeah, I love Ginger Spice
Oh, I liked Sporty Spice back in the day. No, I didn't fancy it, but I thought she was cool.
because you've always been all about the sports.
Sports.
And then
Simple
I
game.
loved on TV Mary Kate and Ashley. Like I
Mary Kate
genuinely
and Ashley.
would watch them and think, oh my goodness, how can I be more like them? I was actually obsessed with twins, full stop.
What, by Roald Dahl?
Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan playing the two twins. I was obsessed with that movie.
Parent Trap gets mentioned so much by you guys.
Ryan's
I've
never
even
watched
seen
Parent
this
Trap. It's the best movie ever.
Charlie says it every week.
It's like a rite of passage. It's the best film.
Let's watch Parent Trap.
Oh my God,
tonight.
the outfits. And also it'll make you want to move to the country and have like, because one of them, one has like the city life and then one has the like rural life, like the ranch life. Oh my God, it's so fun.
Let's watch it.
It's amazing.
So who's on your bed spread?
It made me really, really want to be a twin, but also it made me really want to be like Ashley, who was like the slightly more, because there's often like a kind of girly one and then there's a slightly more sporty one, I suppose, to appeal to like both different kinds of girls. Ashley was always then the one that like was in relationships with boys, and she wore these like little camisole vests with skirts. And then I went to Jigsaw, which is actually a really expensive store, and like, I begged my mum to buy me like one of those. It's almost like a knitted cami vest with like a bit of velvet on the top of it.
Ooh, that sounds disgusting.
Yeah, no, it was pink with like red velvet on it.
Oh my God.
And I'd wear it with massive flares or with like a little skirt.
Bloody hell.
And yeah, but I guess it's interesting because now there are things like social media where people get to, are exposed to a lot of different people that what they might idolize, whereas we were much more limited to what we would see on TV. And there were like a couple of channels, so it might have been the Disney Channel, or I mean before that obviously cartoons with Cartoon Network. What were the other ones?
Nickelodeon.
Did you want to be those people, or you just like, what was your relationship like with the people then that you had on your wall? Do you feel like it was a healthy relationship?
What, me and The Rock?
Yeah, in your head, your imaginary friendship.
Me and The Rock were tight.
Like, what did you want from that relationship? Were you like, I aspire to be like you, you're a good role model, I like you as a person, I like the way you look?
Oh, yeah. He had bags
Like, I
of
wanna be rich and
charisma.
famous, I
Like,
wanna be a
people
wrestler.
loved him. He was the wrestling champ. He was pumped. Yeah, there was loads of things that I wanted to try and copy. At one point, I was trying to convince Adam that we should be wrestling partners. Still a fallback plan.
I've never seen you like this before. You're so happy.
Yeah, but wrestling, that was like childhood, like.
Gold. I used to actually play it on Nintendo.
Oh no, we didn't play it. I used to watch it. It was called SmackDown and Raw. People out there will know what I'm talking about.
And then what was the kind of evolution of that when you were at uni? Like, were there people that you looked up to?
Ryan Atwood. Remember the OC?
Oh, yeah.
I used to love Ryan Atwood. I used to love Ryan Atwood.
Your namesake?
No, I just liked what he was about. He was like quiet, reserved, but when you needed him, he'd show up and you'd handle it. I used to think that was cool.
And were you more of a Summer or a Marissa kind of guy?
I'll let you figure that one out because you don't look too dissimilar from one of them.
I will take that. So I guess then you reach a point in life when life just becomes a little bit more serious. And we've had a conversation before, and I actually think this is before we even had our son, where we spoke about this idea of like mentorship, looking up to people, having a role model, having a sense of direction, kind of like a guiding light, knowing that you want to take qualities from that person or they've built a career that you admire and would like to learn from it. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, and I remember when we were speaking about that before, and I think it was maybe me, you and Scott, because it was when we were heavily involved in all the turtle stuff. And I really noticed that both of you guys used to speak about men that you admired quite a lot. And it kind of shone a light on the fact that I didn't have a female role model. And I don't know whether, I think it's kind of cool that men actually do have role models. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Well, what's the psychology behind you not having a female to look up to? Maybe your interpretation of it is like, Is there like an element of jealousy there? I don't know.
No. I think it's more that perhaps in my line of work, I've not had a female boss to kind of show me the ropes and somebody to like take me on a journey with them. Then I went around like looking for one, really, and realizing that actually I need to find people who I can have interesting conversations with and who I can learn from. And now I would say that I am in a position where I've got those women, like my good friend Sophie, who's a nursery mum who I've become very close with. You know, women, I know that this whole like term, like women in business, gets bandied around a lot at the moment, like it's hot on people's lips. And it can come across as like a little bit cliche, but I think that it's kind of for good reason. I think it's really, really cool that women are coming together and creating like groups where they feel like they can share and learn a lot from each other. And it's been like one of my ambitions for a long time to like get groups of cool women together, like whether it's at the house for like a breakfast and to all kind of share trade secrets. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like when it was during lockdown, like who were the men that you guys used to talk about a lot when we would be training in the garden?
Well, I used to talk a lot about my housemaster when I was at school. He was probably the first man, aside from my dad, that I looked at with just pure admiration. He was my housemaster in my boarding school. And he actually died at a very young age. So if I left school at 18, I think by 25 he was dead. He had a brain tumour. He's got 6 months to live and gone. And he was the absolute picture of health. Ex-professional rugby player. He used to train, look after himself really well. He had a massive impact on me at that school. I've actually spoken about that school in probably some negative ways, but he was a real positive. And his son went on to play for Ireland and is still playing for Ireland.
Cool.
And I can remember, I don't know if I've told you this story, but I used to see the dad, my housemaster, in the squash courts with his youngest son. And he'd be doing this thing where he would basically stop his son plays rugby and he plays scrum half, and they pass from the base. And in order to stop him from moving his feet and losing balance, he used to like trap his feet against the wall of the squash court and get him to just constantly do this passing drill in between classes. As a young kid, I was like, oh my God, I need to be like that with my son at some point in my life. Because I could identify right there and then. I was like, that's what it takes if you want to go to the next level with sporting prowess and where you go. These guys were running drills, father and son, in the squash course. No one was around. They weren't doing it for anyone else's benefit, but just practice and dedication. And I saw this housemaster do things like that all the time. And he was a big influence. So he was like my first mentor, if you like.
So he gave him a competitive advantage and then that paid off.
Yes, yeah. But taught them hard work, dedication, commitment. And he was a picture of it. He was in his 50s, early 50s, built like an absolute god. And no, it's not about the size and muscles. It's not about that. It's about just how he carried himself as a man.
So what will you take from that then to pass on to Leo?
Hard work in the shadows prepares you for the light.
Oh my God. Your like whole energy has changed so much talking about this guy, which is so interesting. I can't work out like you like, yeah.
It scared the living Jesus out of me to find out that he passed.
How did that make you feel?
Terrified. But also like a reminder that we're all human, I suppose. I used to think he was invincible. He was like my Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you like. He was right there, living in my house. Oh, sorry, we were living in the same boarding house. I'd see him every day.
Yeah, I noticed that you watch a lot of documentaries about men, successful men in sport, probably more men in sport versus men in business. But yeah, a lot of shows that like celebrate men for achieving cool things. Why do you reckon that is? What about those shows do you enjoy?
I think you're talking more about like the sporting documentaries, yeah?
Yeah, a bit of them, but also like, you know, documentaries about people that have achieved a lot in their life.
Okay, yeah.
I always think that it's quite nice when I see like a man on the beach or on holiday reading a book that is an autobiography written about another man's life.
I'm very curious and very interested in what steps these people have taken to get there and who's been part of the journey. And I'm fascinated by the sort of psychology, especially in like the sports world, because you can be as physically gifted or as talented as, you know, whoever, but there's a massive psychological element to that, which needs training and coaching and development. And often these documentaries will take you on that journey. No, I find that really interesting. Probably because I'm trying to figure my own missing pieces out a little bit, because physically and talent wise I probably had it, but I just didn't have the psychological.
Now we're getting somewhere, because when you were talking about this guy who was training his son and they turned out to be professional athletes, I could see there was like a lot of energy in your body like stored up, and there is an element of frustration, and it is something that I've heard come out of your mouth before. This idea that you wish that you'd been pushed more and been taken in that direction and offered more opportunities in professional sport.
100%.
And so do you think back to that father and son dynamic and think, oh, I wish that I'd been the one in that squash court, like that could have been me?
Yes.
And where would I be if that had been?
Yes. Yes.
And so when you watch these documentaries and things, you think like it lights a fire inside you.
Yes.
And you think like, okay, so when you're watching them, do you think it's not too late for me? Or do you think, how am I going to cultivate my son into that?
You're really seeing through the cracks here. This is like therapy. It really is. I'm on the ropes. Yeah. Yes. To both parts of that, yeah. I'm like, oh, maybe it's not too late for me. But then more so, I'm like, okay, how can I cultivate and foster the right environment for Leo? Yeah. And I'm going to just say it. I do want him to become a sportsman. And I know that there'll be people listening who'll be like, oh, we can't force it and let him make his own decisions. I will. Ultimately, it's down to him. But I do also really want to raise the next best sportsman.
Wow.
And I think he's got it in his system to be that. Why do I feel emotional talking about this? What's going on?
I don't know. Oh. Are you crying?
But I have actually got quite a lot of emotion about this. I don't know why.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry.
I don't know why.
Wow. Why have we
Did
both
not
been
expect
so
to
good?
go there.
Wow, I'm so intrigued. I feel like I'm learning so much about the way you are.
Same.
Obviously, Leo can do whatever he wants to do. He's definitely gifted with a ball. We're both pretty sporty, so if there is a genetic component, then I'm sure.
By the way, you're very, very sporty. I'm not talking about Leo and his sporting abilities based off me. It's collective. My dad is so impressed that you like passing a rugby ball or kicking a football. I can see him looking. He's like,
Really?
Yeah.
What, you've actually seen him do that?
every time.
What do you
He's like
mean?
turning around. He's like, who can I speak to about this?
Really? That's awesome. Yeah, it's a feeling thing, isn't it?
Anyway, that's enough about me
sometimes
and
you
my
enjoy it.
emotional journey. What about you?
Well, I think it's interesting, this thing of like passing on your ambitions onto your children. Like, I know when I grew up that I had some friends who had hugely academic parents, and they and that, you know, there was a lot of pressure on their kids to be amazing at the piano and violin, and also at maths and science, and to do a lot of extracurricular stuff and extra exam taking. And I count myself as quite lucky because I had access to a lot of opportunities to try a lot of different things, but my parents never pushed me in any directions, really. I kind of wanted them to, maybe a little bit more, but it meant that I got
is this when you're going to get emotional?
No, it meant that I got to choose. And I do think it's so important with Leo just to throw loads of stuff at him and see what sticks. But we do have a conversation occasionally, because obviously sport is quite a big part of our household, and you watching it, and my brother's obsessed with Chelsea and you're obsessed with rugby, and there's a lot of that energy around us. Inevitably, he will either scoop some of that up, or he'll run completely the opposite direction. But I'll often say well, what would be the dream sport for him to get into? Because as a protective mother, I couldn't think of anything worse than him being a rugby player and getting cauliflower ear. And, you hear these stories about football players dropping dead because they have heart attacks or whatever it might be. I wouldn't want him to be in any dangerous sports. So I'd love him to be a tennis player.
Great one.
Versus
Look
an
at
F1
Roger
driver.
Federer and Nadal. They've lived a life.
Or a golfer.
They just travel the sun.
Nice solitude, please.
100%. Got both amazing sports.
And actually, golf is something I'd really like for us to get into more this summer. I was speaking to Emily, your sister-in-law, about it. Why is that funny? Why is that funny?
Oh, do you know how long it takes to play a round of golf? 4 hours. You can't even go to a sound bath for 45 minutes without panicking about time.
I can. That's my element. I'm all right when I go to that local place around the corner that's parallel to the house, where you could do the virtual golfing.
Do you remember you did that in New York? We went to the Chelsea...
Yeah, the driving range.
You were bloody good on that as well.
So yeah, I think the good thing about sport is it drives you outside. And I think...
Look,
so yes,
Louise.
we've both had sporting icons that have been role models to us. Although, to be honest...
Hang on, have we? Who's yours?
Well, no. I'm then backtracking.
Sorry.
I'm backpedaling. That was when I met you. You were my sporting role model.
Whoa.
But before that, it was more... that's just made you smile in a very sweet way. Before that, it was probably... No, I was a bit of a wildcat. So I didn't really have anyone, I didn't have a teacher at school that took me under their wing. It wasn't a head of school, a headmistress, or, that aunt or godparent that I particularly looked up to. I wasn't necessarily really close to my grandparents. I'm changing all of that now. So I don't feel as though I had that older figure that I thought, oh, I really want to be like that when I grow up. There's a big gap that was missing, I could have done with having somebody there. Because, in the TV world, we definitely didn't have a role model, because we were working on this side of the camera and they were working on that side of the camera, and they kind of were the ones in the position of power, but we didn't really feel like we were on the same team. So it wasn't as though I went, oh, okay, that's the exec, and I could learn a lot from them, because there was this huge boundary, this wall between us both, between the cast and the creators. So I didn't think, oh, yes... And I never wanted to be in TV anyway. So I didn't go oh yeah, I want to climb up that ladder and be like that person. Mm-hmm. So it's always kind of just had a bit of a random trajectory. This has served as a bit of a reminder that I want to go away, and as a bit of homework to myself. I want to think about who those female figures are. Actually, when we had a strategy meeting at the beginning of this year, the only person I could think of was Carrie Bradshaw.
Great.
Author.
Is that her real name, by the way? No. What's Sarah Jessica Parker?
Sarah Jessica Parker is the actress, yeah.
Yeah, and how do you know how close they are in terms of is she actually like Carrie Bradshaw? Or
I think she's actually got a really great reputation, and I think she's in a really lovely marriage, which I admire. I think she actually came over to the UK because she was in a Broadway show here.
Let's get her on the show.
That would be life goals if you're listening.
Sarah, please come on the show.
Carrie, even Ryan is obsessed with Sex and the City.
It's true. If you're listening, it's true.
So she's kind of my current role model, but her life is a bit of a mess. So I draw on certain elements, her the fun, the close female connection she has are cool, her friendships, and the whole like column writing thing. I think it's cool. And she's very into fashion, and I love.
You love fashion.
I love fashion, and I love being like a little bit like eclectic with it. Bright, colourful things, puffy skirts, print patterns,
Shoulder pads and whatever.
all that sort of stuff.
Good.
Who are your current mentors then?
Lots of my friends steer me in a really helpful way. So Carlos, I take a lot from Carlos. Will, Sam Kitch. I don't know if I can name names, but I'm doing it. These people have a big influence on me, actually. Carlos is very reliable, very methodical, very kind. Will's very creative, very kind.
There's a theme.
Sam Kitch is a visionary, big thinker, very kind.
Only kind people allowed.
It's all the world needs, kindness.
This is a bit ridiculous, but I've actually found myself Googling female role models to see from sources across the web who they recommend. And there are a list of people. Emma Watson, Greta Thunberg, Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, of course. List of people. Audrey Hepburn, Angelina Jolie. I love Emma Thompson, but not necessarily that many that I would relate to. Although one of the names that has popped up is Sheryl Sandberg. And she wrote the book Option B, which hugely inspired me when I was writing my own book, Lucky.
There we go.
But yeah, I'd love to know a little bit more from you guys that are listening about who your idols are. Idols, mentors, people that you look up to, people that you think have had a positive impact on your life. It's such an interesting thing to talk about, isn't it?
I think it would be really great to hear from you guys on that one. And in the show notes, you can find our email address. Or I guess you could use our Instagram and you could send us a message there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I feel like we're both now like really like lost in thought because this has given us so much to think about. I'm looking at you and your head's like, we're both kind of in the clouds thinking, oh.
Well, because I'm thinking I want to do right by Leo, so when he gets asked that question, he'll say Ma or Pa. That's why I'm away with the fairies.
That's such a lovely way to end the conversation. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I felt a little bit different. It's like a different tone. As always, like, love your guys' feedback. If you want to pop any reviews, if you've got like specific things that you did like or didn't like, then please do share. And send this episode to anyone that you think might enjoy it.
See you next week.